How's it going, my bakers? I hope you're having a great day. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're making a 100% whole wheat sandwich loaf, which will be nice and soft and flavorful. So let's go to the kitchen and check it out. This will be another great addition to the whole grain breads playlist. And I've been trying to work on that playlist a little bit more. Since most of my recipes are made with white flour, it makes for a good change and a more healthy alternative. So don't forget to check it out for more whole wheat bread recipes after you watch this video. This sandwich bread is made using the Yudane method. It is usually associated with soft and fluffy Japanese milk bread, but it works similarly with whole wheat flour. The Yudane makes the loaf extra soft and springy, and to make it even softer and to add even more nutritional value, I added a couple egg yolks in the recipe too, and a tiny bit of sugar for sweetness. But that's me, I like my sandwich bread slightly sweetened. You can leave the sugar out if you like. You could also use this dough to make individual rolls, that is up to you. But let's just get to it and see what we need to make this. We'll need some whole wheat flour. The flour that I'm using has a protein content of 13%. We'll also need some water, yeast, salt, sugar, olive oil, and a couple of egg yolks. That is coconut sugar, by the way. I bought it on my holiday in India. As for the equipment, we'll need a bowl, scales, a dough scraper, a temperature probe, and a baking tin. This loaf fits perfectly in a 2 pound or 900 gram tin. You can of course split it up into smaller tins, make 2 1-pound loaves, or just make some rolls. Right, the process starts with the Yudane. It is made by mixing a portion of the total flour with some boiling water. The hot water gelatinizes the starches in the flour, and that is what gives the bread its unique texture. You can make this a day ahead of time if you wanted to and leave it in the fridge. Or you can make it on the same day, just make sure it's cooled down completely before you use it. As I was filming this, it was the middle of summer, so my kitchen was pretty hot, so even cooling this down to room temperature wouldn't be good enough. I left this to sit for an hour and a half. Let's check the temperature and see what it says. 31 Celsius, that's about 87 Fahrenheit, it's way too warm. So I'll pop it in the fridge to cool it down completely. Now if it's winter and your kitchen is quite cool, you could just leave this to cool down to room temperature, then use it. But when it's hot out, it's best to cool it down and use it from the fridge. This is cooled down completely. Now we can mix it into a dough. Add the remaining water, the egg yolks, the yeast, salt, sugar and olive oil. Then mix everything until the salt and sugar is completely dissolved and the yeast is nicely hydrated. I quite like this coconut sugar. I wish I had some more. It has a very subtle sweetness and kind of like a caramel flavor. Even though it is coconut sugar, it doesn't taste of coconut. But then again, I'm not sure how they make it. Right, once everything's nicely mixed, add the final ingredient, the remaining flour. Then grab your scraper and mix it to a dough. And if the scraper's not doing the job, continue on by hand. Mix the dough in a bowl until there's no more dry flour left, and then tip it out on table. We can start kneading it. And be ready, this will be very sticky and messy. The egg yolks, the sugar, the whole wheat flour, and the oil, they all make this dough very sticky. And that's totally normal. Don't get discouraged, just keep kneading. We must knead this dough for at least 6 minutes, and the struggle will definitely be worth it in the end. The only way to make your life easier here is just to keep kneading it, and then once in a while grabbing your scraper and scraping it all together. Scrape the dough up from the table, scrape it off your hands, and just continue kneading. The dough should get slightly more cohesive and less sticky as you keep going, but don't expect it to be super smooth. This is what it should look like after around 6 minutes of kneading. It is still sticky, but it has some resistance when I pull it. Now we can pop this in a bowl and start the bulk fermentation, but before that let's check the temperature. Around 25 degrees Celsius or 77 Fahrenheit is just about right for this. If your dough is warmer, it will ferment more rapidly. If it's cooler, it'll take longer. I'll cover this up and leave it for 1 hour. After the first hour of fermentation, we need to give this a fold. Folding will give this dough some strength. It will help it keep its shape as it's proofing and baking. To perform the fold, place the dough out on the table with the smooth side down. Then flatten it out, fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until reach point where it started. Then flip the dough smooth side up again, tighten it against the table, and that's the fold done. Now it can go back into the bowl, facing the same way. You can cover it up and leave it to ferment for another hour. And it should really start rising now. I decided to make this loaf into 4 sections, so I'm going to weigh my dough and divide it into 4 equal pieces. Your design is up to you. You can do 3 sections, 2 sections, or you just leave it whole. We are going to pre-shape this dough after dividing it. Now if you decide to keep the loaf whole and not divide it, I would still suggest that you pre-shape your dough, then leave it to rest and only then do the final shaping. You will get a stronger and taller loaf that way. I'm going to pre-shape these into rounds. I'm using the same method as for the fold earlier. Flatten the dough, fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach point where you started. Then tighten it against the table. That's your pre-shaping done. These dough balls are quite tight now, so we must leave them to rest before we do the final shaping. Cover them up, leave them to sit for 15 minutes. During this time, the gluten will relax and the final shaping will be a lot easier. First up, give it a light dusting of flour. Then take a dough ball, place it smooth side down on the table and flatten it out. Press it into an oval shape. Now cross the two sides over in the middle. And then starting from the top, roll it up. The purpose of this is to create layers and build tension. And it's pretty much the same principle when you're shaping a single loaf. You want this to be nice and tight, but if the dough is resisting, don't force it, it may tear. Although the whole wheat flour makes it quite loose, so you shouldn't really have any issues with that. My non-stick loaf tin cannot be trusted anymore, so I will be lining it with some reusable piece of baking paper. And I'm curious, what kind of loaf tins do you use? Are they sticky too? So far, I have never owned a loaf tin that stays non-stick. Those coatings don't last very long. And I guess a bare metal tin would be much better. And if you know of such a tin, do let me know down in the comments, because I'm tired of buying new loaf tins all the time. Anyway, once you arrange your loaf in your tin, cover it up and leave it for the final proof, which will take around an hour and a half to 2 hours. During the final hour of fermentation, you want to preheat your oven, 160 degrees Celsius fan on, and that's 320 degrees Fahrenheit. And just look at that, it's puffed up beautifully. Now I did not mention this with the ingredients in the beginning, but as a last minute addition, I decided to brush this loaf with some egg. It'll make it nice and shiny and give the crust a nice chew. And of course you can leave it off if you want. Or if you want to try out a different kind of glaze, check out my glazing video on the Principles of Baking playlist. Right, let's get this bad boy in the oven. It'll take around 40 minutes. And don't expect it to rise much. It's already pretty much puffed up to its full potential. If you're ever unsure of the doneness of your loaf, you can test it by taking this temperature. If it reads above 94 degrees Celsius or 200 degrees Fahrenheit, it's ready. Now here's a quick tip. To release your loaf from the tin more easily, use your dough scraper. Of course this loaf didn't need it, because I lined the tin with baking paper. But there you have it, a 100% whole wheat sandwich loaf made with the Japanese Yudane method. It came out pretty good, I must say. There was a beautifully soft texture, it's nice and light, and of course plenty of flavor from the whole wheat flour. It's quite easy to make, if you don't count the kneading process. But you know how it is, you can't just get everything for free in life. Sometimes good results require a bit of effort, and this was well worth it. And if you are looking for a whole wheat sandwich bread, you should definitely give this a go. And don't forget to check out the whole grain bread playlist. I got quite a few tasty breads there, and I will add some more recipes to it in the future. Oh, and this is what the bread was like 2 days after baking it. As you can see, it's still beautifully soft and springy. So what do you think of this recipe? What do you think of this method? Let me know down in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this one, click over here. Subscribe to the channel, click right here. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.